Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum all. We're starting a little bit different today. For those of you who are joining us on Facebook and YouTube Live, we're starting with the video that also includes the audio that we will be broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio. Just trying to give you a heads up for this change. And actually, this is an unrehearsed change right now. But after we get you all started here on the Facebook Live piece, right after that, we're going to be doing the Blog Talk piece. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and start the Blog Talk. We'll just do it all live for right now. Call Blog Talk host. Coming soon.
In a world economy where information is filtered by global media corporations, keenly attuned to their powerful advertisers, who will defend the public's right to know? And what price must be paid to preserve our ability to make informed choices?
What Fox Television told us was that we were just the people to be the investigators.
Do any stories you want, ask tough questions, and get answers. So we thought, this is great. This is a dream job. Fantastic. The very first thing they had us do was not to research stories, but to shoot this promo, which was The Investigators.
Uncovering the truth, getting results, protecting you.
And they had a film crew and a smoke machine, and we were silhouetted.
Investigative reporter Steve.
One of the first stories that Jane came up with was the revelation that most of the milk in the state of Florida and throughout much of the country was adulterated with the effects of bovine growth hormone.
With Monsanto, I didn't realize how effectively a corporation could work to get something on the marketplace. The levels of coordination they had to have. They had to get university professors into the fold. They had to get experts into the fold. They had to get reporters into the fold. They had to get the public into the fold. And of course, the FDA, let's not leave them out. They had to get the federal regulators convinced that this was a fine and safe product to get it onto the marketplace. And they did that. They did that very, very well.
Posilac is the single most tested new product in history and is now available to you specifically so you can increase your profit potential.
The federal government basically rubber stamped it before they put it on the marketplace. The longest test they did for human toxicity was 90 days on 30 rats. And then either Monsanto misreported the results to the FDA or the FDA didn't bother to look in depth at Monsanto's own studies.
The scientists within Health Canada looked very carefully at bovine growth hormone and came to very different conclusions than the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. did.
Monsanto's engineered growth hormone did not comply with safety requirements. It could be absorbed by the body and therefore did have implications for human health. Mysteriously, that conclusion was deleted from the final published version of their report.
I personally was very concerned that there's a very serious problem of secrecy, conspiracy, and things of that nature. We have been pressured and coerced to pass drugs of questionable safety, including the RBST.
We wrote the story. We had it ready a week beforehand. They'd bought ads.
Farmers in the milk industry say it's safe, but studies suggest a link to cancer. Don't miss this special report from the investigators.
That Friday night before the Monday this series was to begin, the fax machine spit out a letter from this very high-priced lawyer in New York that Monsanto had hired. It contained a lot of things that were just off-the-wall false, just demonstrably false. But if you didn't know the story and you didn't know how we had gone about producing it, would have scared you as a broadcaster, as a manager.
And they decided that they would pull the story and they would just check it one more time.
But the bottom line was that there was no factual errors in that story. Both sides had been heard from. Both sides had had an opportunity to speak.
1 week later, Monsanto sent the second letter, and this was even more strongly worded. And it said there will be dire consequences for Fox News if the story airs in Florida. And this time they freaked. They were afraid of being sued, and they were also afraid of losing advertising dollars at all of the stations owned by Rupert Murdoch. And he owned more television stations than any other group in America. And that's 22 television stations. That's a lot of advertising dollars for Roundup, aspartame, NutraSweet, and other products.
So we got into a battle. And the first deal was the new general manager.
And his name's Dave. And Dave is a salesman, and, you know, he'd pump your hand. How you doing? How you doing?
Called us upstairs to his office, and he said, what would you say if I killed this piece? What if it never ran? And we said, well, you know, we wouldn't be very happy about that. And he said, well, I could kill it, you know. And we said, yes, of course, you're the manager. You could kill it. It would never air. And he's hemming and he's hawing and he's back and he's forth. And we couldn't figure out, what is this all about? And finally he blurted out, look, would you tell anybody? You know, I said, I'm not going to lie for you. About a week later, calls us back to the office and says, okay, we'd like you to make these changes. In fact, you will make these changes. We said, well, look, let us show you the research that we have that shows that this information you want us to broadcast isn't true. To which he replies, I don't care about that. I said, pardon me? And he said, well, that's what I have lawyers for. Just write it the way the lawyers want it written. I said, you know, this is news. This is important. This is stuff people need to know. And I'll never forget, he didn't pause a beat, and he said, we just paid $3 billion for these television stations. We'll tell you what the news is. The news is what we say it is. I said, I'm not doing that. And he said, well, he said, if you refuse to present this story the way we think it should be presented, you'll be fired for insubordination. I said, I will go to the Federal Communications Commission and I will report that I was fired from my job by you, the licensee of these public airwaves, because I refused to lie to people on the air. And it's thank you very much. You'll hear from us right away. Well, 24 hours came and went, and we didn't hear a thing. And about a week later, he calls us back, and now we've changed strategies. How about if we pay you some money and you just go away? And I said, how much money? Because, you know, when somebody offers to bribe you like that, I always want to know if it might be worth it.
He was going to offer us the rest of our year's salary if we agreed not to talk about what Monsanto had done, to not talk about the Fox corporate response in suppressing the story, and to not talk about the story. Not talk about BGH again, anywhere. Not take the story to another news organization. Just zip up.
I said, you mean if I want to go to my daughter's PTA meetings and explain what's in the school milk at the school lunch program? I can't. No, you can never speak about this anywhere.
And Steve says, okay, write it up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Write it up. And I didn't say anything. And Dave, he wrote it up. And he FedExed it to us a couple days later. And he said, are you going to sign? And we said, nah, Dave, we're not going to sign that. And he said, well, send it back, okay? I said, no, Dave, we're not going to send that back.
It was, okay, we can't buy you out. We can't shut you up. Let's get the story on the air in a way that we can all agree it will go on the air. And we started rewriting and editing with their lawyers.
Well, during this 8-month re-review process, I say, jokingly, they did things like, for example, they wanted to take out the word cancer. You don't have to identify what the potential problem is. Just say human health implications. Any criticism of Monsanto or its product, they either removed it or minimized it. And it was very, very clear, I would say, almost every edit they made to the piece, that was the aim.
And we changed this and this and this, and then that wasn't good enough. Okay, now change this and this and this. Now change this and this. Version after version after version, 83 times.
83 times is unheard of. It doesn't happen. You shouldn't have to rewrite something 83 times. Obviously, they didn't want to put the thing on the air, and they were trying to drive us crazy and get us to quit or wait until the first window in our contract so that they could fire us.
They, in effect, announced that they were going to fire us for no cause. Well, this was a little much.
And Steve wrote a letter to the lawyer in Atlanta, whose name is Carolyn Forrest, the Fox corporate lawyer.
And I said, you know, this isn't about being fired for no cause. You're firing us because we refused to put on the air something that we knew and demonstrated to be false and misleading. That's what this is about. And because we put up a fight, because we stood up to this big corporation, and we stood up to your editors, and we stood up to your lawyers, and we said to you, look, there ought to be a principle higher than just making money.
And she wrote a letter back and said, you're right. That's exactly what it was. You stood up to us on this story, and that's why we're letting you go. Big mistake. Big mistake. That says retaliation. You can't retaliate against employees if they're standing up for something that they believe is illegal, that they don't want to participate in. So that gave us the whistleblower status that we needed in the state of Florida to file a whistleblower claim against our employer.
And as far as 2 or 3 years later, we got to trial. 5 weeks of testimony led to a jury verdict of $425,000, in which the jury determined that the story they pressured us to broadcast, the story we resisted telling, was in fact false, distorted, or slanted.
Fox News appealed the verdict. 5 major news media corporations filed briefs with the court in support of Fox's appeal.
You may recall that Jane Acree, a former reporter here, sued Fox 13 in a whistleblower lawsuit, claiming she was fired for refusing to distort her report. The appeals court today threw that case out, saying Ms. Acree had no whistleblower claim against the station based on news distortion. Fox 13 Vice President and General Manager Bob Linger says the station has been completely vindicated by the ruling.
What Fox neglected to report is this. Jane sued Fox under Florida's whistleblower statute, which protects those who try to prevent others from breaking the law. But her appeal court judges found that falsifying news isn't actually against the law. So they denied Jane her whistleblower status, overturned the case, and withdrew her $425,000 award. Canada and Europe have upheld the ban on RBGH, yet it remains hidden in much of the milk supply of the United States. Canada's most popular documentary, The Corporation, now on DVD. More than 8 hours of extras on 2 discs, commentaries, the making of, deleted scenes, and more. 165 new interview clips on 23 topics, with related web links and strategies for change. Special offers at thecorporation.com.
May cause social change. World domination not included.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Brothers and sisters, welcome to the revised. I won't call it the new and improved, but we're switching up on things, as I call Haja Camila into the room. We decided. I decided because now I know that I can play the videos as well. Oh, my bad. I gotta. Where you at? Blog Talk. I haven't got you in there. Hold on. I didn't even open it up. So the more points of change and points of potential failure. All right, you got me?
I heard it say unmuted. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum.
All right, alhamdulillah. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Okay, seems like we're clicking on all cylinders right now.
Let me close
great.
my window. We got neighbor noise.
All right. Okay. So again, the broadcast started today with, normally I would just abstract the audio from the video on YouTube, but now I have an app. I can download the video and the audio and go ahead and get started on this side, the StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube side of it, at the very beginning, 4:30. So as we continue forward, my people, in the future, the broadcast will begin at 4:30. Some of y'all check in mainly after the blog talk, and you got to do what you got to do. It's your life, okay? However, we always want you to be tied in to the prefatory piece, audio and or video, because it is a critical part of the whole program, because it touches on the theme today, which is a continuation. It's like part 3 of the truth about the deal with the devil. And I call this one the corporation edition, because you can go to you can go to every domain in society right now, and you can pinpoint the deal with the devil that's been made there. But most times people don't really understand, because of the way that those who make the deals with the devil and the devil himself, from a cultural perspective, that idea of the devil and the deal with the devil is not the one that most people understand. We're talking about the real deal with the devil that we're talking about, part of which in the piece that we played, it's basically kind of telling you that story, what people will do in the interest of profit, no matter who it hurts. So whoever does that, they've made a deal with the devil. And there are different ways to hurt humanity and society and the like. And so different people make different deals. And so we're talking about the truth about that I am talking about truth. Haja is always, she come with what she come with. So she's totally independent creature in this process. So she don't have to talk to you about the deal with the devil in the way that I do. In fact, she's not my co-host for that reason. In fact, she's my co-host so she can put that feminine, intellectual, spiritual, cultural touch on it, because sometimes I get too alpha on the program, and so you gotta tone it down a little bit. Alhamdulillah. So I'm gonna back up, get on out the way right now, and let Haja do what she do while we greet each other. We haven't had a chance to have that exchange between you and I.
I know. We jumped right in. Alhamdulillah, we just jumped right in, and it's all good. You came in with both holsters blowing, so it's good.
Yeah, that's right. Two good people.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, alhamdulillah, beautiful. All I'm going to let you have it. It's all on you.
Thank you, Baba.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Alaikum assalam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to our wealth creation and preservation audience and family. We are here once again, a new week, another opportunity to fill our tanks and get us to be very introspective, and for us to be ready to take the responsibility for what it is that we know, to be accountable for our existence and how we practice this way of life called Al-Islam. Today has been a soft day for me. And what do I mean by a soft day? A soft day because, when you have, I've been really, really, really focused on this entrepreneurship journey, especially because the community has been blessed to have our Juma conversations around the ideal of Ummah and what that responsibility looks like. And as an entrepreneur, that when you start to understand what that means to build business, to create a solution to a problem, as entrepreneurs, like any entrepreneur that that exists, they are creating solutions to problems. And in hearing all of the different things that have come up in talking about Shaitan, interfering in utilizing the business world as a means to interfere, it's all the more reason why we as Muslims have to step up our entrepreneurship game, have to step up being in business, have to step up moving with a level of integrity and not being dependent on the corporations that don't move in integrity. And this is definitely the struggle of the small business owner, because the small business is still seeking to survive while building the business. And when it works hand in hand around building the business, you have to be so very focused that you definitely leave room for faith to jump in and help you out in the process. And that can be a challenge. That can be stressful, right? And it's because you're trying to, you can't help but to naturally have this ego side of yourself that is on the field with other entrepreneurs, and you see others who have such a leg up, and you want to trust your process in the building of your business, trust your process in what Allah inspired upon you to bring to the marketplace, and trusting that it is something that the marketplace would want, that the marketplace can benefit from, right? So it's definitely, like, for me, because I work mostly with women entrepreneurs, it is truly an intuitive process that you have to be such an obedient listener and so observant of the environment, of the signs that show up to say, yes, keep going, or the signs that show up and say, it might be time for a pivot in this area, right? So I'm gonna give you an example. I am a student of my life, right? And when I say that I'm a student of my life, um, I am so grateful to how the Imam, my father, has taught me to pay attention to experiences, and recognizing that the experience holds a lesson. Every single experience holds a lesson. And to not just, navigate life just doing, get up, go to work, go home, get into bed, sleep, wake up, do the same thing. This hamster wheel life, right? It has always been this way of how my dad loves to use metaphors, and I love a good metaphor. Now, at the time when he was doing it as a teenager, it would be very frustrating, like, to really be able to be like, man, like, why am I sitting through this conversation, right? But even in the midst of it, I was learning how to read my environment. I was learning how to, you know, um, to pay attention to my feelings, the things that may trigger me, to pay attention to, this happened because of that, like taking full inventory of the journey leading up to a particular moment. So I had, this was maybe 2 weeks ago, might have been 2 weeks ago. I was at Juma, and the imam did an amazing Juma about business. I mean, just lit us up. Well, I know I was lit up as a result, because it was what I needed to hear. And I was having such a hard time with, adjusting new systems to my business, because I'm of the mindset that if there is something that is good for you, for your business, for your way of life, and it has not happened yet, it is because you have not created the space for it to arrive. Like you have not made room to receive it and be prepared for the responsibility of it. So, and I hope you picked up on that. That's a whole long other conversation. But either way, I pay attention to the system. Like, if I look at how many clients I want to serve in either of my businesses, I have to think about, okay, if you were to get a call for 20 clients tomorrow, would you be prepared to take on the responsibility of ensuring that each and every one of those clients will get the best service possible? And if the answer is no, then my task is to create a space that if that call comes in, like what people have usually called the overnight success, When that call comes in, where all of a sudden I have a flood of people at my door, a flood of people on my website are sending me messages ready to work with me. Am I prepared with a system to provide the most excellent service possible? If the answer is no, then I have to create the system to be prepared for when the doors open, right? I'm not just opening the doors and then I'm figuring it out while they're there. Absolutely not. Because the goal is to always operate with excellence. The goal is that I have to represent, being a Muslim businesswoman with integrity. I don't, and if there's a mistake that is made, I am moving with the best customer service to fix the problem, not to, say, oh, that's your problem. No, because when you do business with a good heart, good spirit, good energy, everybody's happy and they want to revisit to experience that happiness, right? And so in this process, I've been looking at systems. And anyone who knows, when you create a system, if you can't do all of the steps, you have to put a team in place or find the individual who can operate in their genius to ensure that it is executed. If you can't afford to bring someone in to do those tasks, then you are now charged with educating yourself to run the machine until you can afford having someone to come in and run the machine. So you're studying, you're reading the books, you're looking at certain systems and what works, you're seeing what it is that you could put in place. It may require you doing multiple hands of things as opposed to you doing it on your own. So there was an event coming up where there was vending in Oakland, and my hair client happened to cancel on that day. And I was like, oh, well, I could go ahead and vend at this event, but it was too late for me to choose to vend at this event. Not only that, I was sitting with this struggle about, okay, when you pay for a vending experience to go vend at an event, it's like it's a constant risk because it's not a guarantee that you'll make back what you invested to pay for your vending space. So it's like if you have to pay $300, like taking it away from your other expenses to put you in this space, as the risk, like, is the risk and reward large enough to where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. There's traffic. Let's see. I believe in my product enough that I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna vend. So I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, and I said, maybe if I send them an email and let them know, hey, do you have any spaces for someone to sign up and vend last minute? Mind you, the deadlines have hit. They already identified everybody, and I didn't get a response for the email. I woke up the next morning, and I do my budgeting Saturday morning, and like Wednesday I kind of check in. I'm always checking my finances because I am a service-based provider, and when I don't have clients to serve, it pauses and affects the finances of things. My other business, I am building out that machine to be able to scale to where it doesn't require my sweat equity. But for now, my other business requires me to be physically there and for my clients to be there. And so the numbers wasn't adding up. The math was not mathing, right? And I was like, okay. And now prior to that, the month before, the month before, in understanding the law of zakat and understanding the law of being charitable and giving in charity. When I understood that, I said, I'm about to double my zakat. It's like I'm about to do this. I'm gonna double it. It's like and that inner voice in me was like, that self-doubting now nafs that has given it, like, girl, you can't be giving up what you ain't got now. What you doing? And I was like, nope, shut up. I know what Allah says is true. I believe it wholeheartedly, without a doubt. I will cut out other things to ensure that this is what I'm going to do and commit to each and every month. It's not going to be if I have it this month, it'll be this month. If I have it this, nope, this is it. Everything else will be negotiated. This number for Zakat every month will not be negotiated because I have a number in my mind. I have a goal in mind for what this business can and will become. And if I understand that and I have created a consistent behavior that says this business is going to allow me to expand it, it's like, okay, well, it's doing this. How are you using it? It's not, I'm going to wait until it does this, then I'm going to start to live out this way of life called Al-Islam. No, no, no. That is first, and everything else catches up to that, right? So me being Muslim, priority, done. It's not negotiated. I changed my work schedule to where Friday is untouchable. Friday is Juma day. I'm not working on that day. I said I have to make these different shifts because as an entrepreneur, I create a business that will support my Islamic life. I create a business that will support me being able to live the best life as a Muslim, right? And so when I made that choice, it was like, okay, so when I did the budget and math wasn't math and the client had canceled, it was just this snowfall effect of, oh boy, okay, Allah, at this stage, it's nothing else I could do. So I woke up that morning, didn't hear back from the event about being able to vend there. And so I was getting online and I was like, okay, well, what can we create? What kind of offer can the business create in order to do X? And nothing was coming to my mind. And so when I get blocked around the creativity part of it, I didn't need to create any more social media content, didn't need to create an email. Everything was set. It was at that point, that was my body saying, ma'am, rest. You've been going like hard from beginning to end. This is your day to rest. And I get up early every morning. I get up before Fajr and I hold that space and time for myself always. That is my sacred quiet time. So after that, when I saw it was nothing else coming up, I was like, okay, I'm not going to get in my emotions. I'm about to lay back down and I'm going to get this sleep. I haven't slept it, taken a nap or anything like that before. I laid down and I went to sleep. And when I tell you that sleep was amazing, it was good. It was like, okay, because I'm not going to let my emotions get in the way of me not trusting whatever it is that Allah has for me. It's going to be whatever it is. I woke up, my phone was buzzing, and I don't turn my ringer on because it's crazy. It'll be ringing all the time. So I saw my phone had missed calls. And then I opened my phone and I had a text message from my sister. And she said, as soon as you see this, call me. So I'm nervous now, right? Because I'm like, when you get a text like that, you shook. And so I picked up the phone and I called her. And she said, where are you at? I've been trying to call you. I said, girl, it was too much. It was too much on my head. And I chose to take today to just go ahead and rest. She said, there's a booth available. And I said, I was going to call you, see if you're ready. I said, what you mean it's a booth available? She said, there's someone who's not coming and they have a booth space available. And I said, well, how much she want? She said, she don't want nothing. Just if you want that space, you can have it. I said, I'm packing my car up now. I ain't never got dressed so fast in my life. And so I could have just been like, no, I'm going to let this be my rest day. No, because the business I'm looking to build, I got big visions. And I love this feeling, right? Because I have conversations with my friends and we talk about the big vision. We talk about the goal. It feels good. It's stimulating. It's like food to me, right? Because the discomfort and the thought of what needs to happen in order to ensure that it is executed, it is me telling my body that the inspired vision that Allah has given me is mine. But now it is time for me to strive towards all that is good. It's not me just sit there and be like, okay, Allah, just, go ahead and do what you do. No, this body has to activate, right? And so I activated. I went, loaded my car up. I showed up there. She helped. She's such a soldier. She helped me load up and get my stuff there set up. And I was there. And I was at a booth. that I was prepared to give up the funds or that was responsible for something else, but I knew that I had to be visible. My brand has to be visible. My brand has to be out there. People have to experience me, right? And so I set up and I was there. And it was amazing because I had to sit in the beauty of the gift of that miracle that happened. But that wasn't the only miracle that happened. I had a young lady come to my booth. Like there were people coming through and, and purchasing. And then I heard this like squeal, like from somebody walking up to my table. Now had never seen this woman before in my life. I did not know her personally, but she was in such awe and such, like she was fangirling out about seeing me here doing vending. And, so I was like, hey, it's nice. And she said, I see you on social media. I've been watching your videos. I've been doing this. It's like, this is how she's exchanging with me. And she said, when 5 years ago, when you started the business, you donated some of your journals for the backpack giveaway. And I got your first journal. Now, mind you, my first one is when I first created is nothing like what my brand is looking like now. My brand has definitely elevated and evolved from 4 or 5 years ago. But she remembered me from that. And she was saying, I'm so happy to see that you're still doing it. I'm so excited to see how different and how much you have changed the tint, the branding, the colors, the logo. Like she remembers where I started as a small like idea to where I am now. And when she had said that, it made me so emotional. And she was like, I don't care what you put in my bag. And she dropped some money on me and said, whatever you put in my bag, I'm gonna take it. And I was like, I was saying to myself, okay, Allah, I got it. I have to be consistent. I have to keep doing it. I have to keep doing the work. And it's like, it's farming. Like being an entrepreneur is a farming process. And when you plant the seed, you don't just plant it and walk away and then just sit there and be like, okay, sprout and give me my sustenance. No, it's going to go through the seasons. It's going to go through the rain. It's going to go through the storm. Then it'll go through the sunshine in the spring. And then it'll sprout a little bit. But you have to remove what needs to be removed. Make sure that the soil is turned. There are things you have to actively do to stimulate the seed that you planted. And many entrepreneurs will get thrown off by the facade of what social media shows you, what they choose to show you of the highlight reels, that they're not showing you the crying and the heart, the task and the struggle of finding those consistent clients, or finding a client that was not happy with what you did and you had to shift and then create the terms and conditions and your refund process and system. You had to do a whole bunch of things, right? We end up seeing the finished product, but the journey to get there, it's a tough journey, right? And so it was in that moment of having that experience with her that I released all need to feel stressed about what the business is doing. I decided that every single day I am going to do something impactful that shifts the path of my business. That's all I can do. That's all I can do. And when I am consistent with doing that and making that happen, that allows me to see that I'm farming my seed properly, that I am taking care of it properly, that I am giving it what it needs in order to grow. I am creating the environment that continues to nurture it and continues to grow it in a way that it will sustain me and those that come after me. That my farming system is in place to where even when I am not physically here, that the system is there to where they know to take that fruit, grab the seed from that and plant that. But they do not chop down the tree that I planted. It is there and firm and present. So each one of us, we have a seed within us. We have an inspired idea. We have something that we are supposed to engage the earth with, plant it, and be consistent in caring for it so that it can grow something that will sustain you and sustain those that come after you. And what is that? It's ummah. And it's not this, as soon as I come up with the idea, it's good and done, and, yay, success happens. No, it's a consistent, ongoing behavior. This last point, just to really lock in that this idea of what I'm talking about, when if you don't have a business mentor, shame on you. You got to get someone who has done it or is doing it. It's important, right? Because sometimes we work within our own scope of reality of what we think we can do. And it's important to find someone that has done it and is doing it. Right? Like you go to school to learn from a teacher who understands the systems of algebra, science, or, all of those things. They give you the tools in order to solve the problems. I'm not saying you have to mimic them or you have to duplicate who they are. What you do is you gather the tools that makes it necessary for you to create your own ecosystem, right? um when I what my mentor was saying us about this ideal of, are you dreaming big enough? And I've never been of the mind that I can't do something. I just this it wasn't in my mind that I can't do it. It's just, am I willing to, right? And so when I said, well, yeah, I got a big dream, and it's like, do you feel like you can achieve it? I was like, absolutely. Yeah, I can do it. I mean, I'm nervous about it, but yeah, I can do it. And he said, you're not dreaming big enough. And I was like, he said, if it don't shake you a little bit, if it don't scare you a little bit, you ain't dreaming big enough. And I understood what that meant, because then when you dream big, you don't know how. You just see the big vision and you're like, well, I don't know how this is going to happen. I have no idea. So that becomes the unknown, is where the fear lies. The fear lies in the space of the unknown, right? So when I had identified, I said, okay, well, let me think about what's the big dream? And when I sat with it, took me 2 days to really like push myself to identify it. That when I identified it, it shook me to my core. Like, it made me cry big tears, because the reality of understanding how big the dream was the idea that I may not experience the vision in my lifetime. Not that I won't receive the blessings of it, but the idea that how big I'm thinking of this, I may not be physically present to see it get there. And that's what got scary. That is what has halted parts of my dream process or my goal process, because I'm thinking about, well, if I do it, I need to be the one running it. I need to be there. I had to. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. So when we think about us as a community and the sacrifices that Imam Muhammad made when he spoke of the new African community and ummah, that it was a big vision, but a big vision that he understood. He may not see it in his lifetime, but we are receiving glimpses of it in this lifetime. And if we continue to do and not get distracted, continue to do the work to continue to build it out, then we start to recognize that this is what this idea, this mindset will feed us and those that come after us. Like Claire Muhammad School, Claire Muhammad, is started in her home. And now we have Claire Muhammad schools nationwide, right? But the big vision of it didn't stop her from saying, well, there's no way that I could create X, Y, and Z, so I'm gonna stop. No, she kept going. And then the baton was passed, and then they kept going, and we have to continue to evolve. We have to also remember that as first and second generation Muslims, we are in here in the United States, our history is built off of this period of time that it consists of, we're not even 100 years old. We're not even at 100 years old as a Muslim community, right? That it is going to take some time. We're seeing schools that are colleges or universities that have been established over 200, 500 years, since the 1800s, right? And so here we are. We have to be consistent and lay the foundation and make sure that that foundation is solid enough to where even if we don't see it within our lifetime, that Allah knows what we have invested, and that we have created a community and an ummah that will sustain us in our lifetime and those that come after us. So with that, I'll call the Imam back into the room.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Let's see. Hello. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Am I being heard?
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. And I heard you very much so. Alhamdulillah. Here's one comment from Imam Adib. Say, man, you just like your daddy. Very informative. Man, alhamdulillah. And then also, Brother Jerome, Haja Camila, your uncompromising perseverance, your goals, and most importantly, the Al-Islam is motivating to see and hear. Your dedication to zakat is certainly a message. Absolutely. Alhamdulillah, we acknowledge so many others, but since these comments were so particular, as we say, give people the flowers while they can smell them. You know what I'm saying? And that's good. Okay, a couple of things that you tipped into when I was talking, because you're living this. So I'm saying that you're living this. You know how you and I have our conversations after.
I'm here for it. Right? I love it.
But I think this is, everybody should get this, because it's a recommendation that everybody can use. You're already living it, so I'm just telling you where you can get a little more science on that process that you went through, in terms of that self-talk, that conversation with yourself about, whoa, okay, what are we gonna do? No, you made this commitment. Right. See that? So he actually talks about who you're actually having that conversation with, right? So there's a book called The Chimp Paradox. The Chimp, like chimpanzee, The Chimp Paradox. And the author of that book is Dr. Steve Peters, which is a last name we're familiar with, Professor Steve Peters. And the one particularly that I got onto him on was the Mindset Doctor. And he talks about the title of it is the Mindset Doctor. That's the title of the YouTube clip, particularly, that I'm mentioning. But he's the author of The Chimp Paradox. And what was also another important thing in connection with him, particularly, because I was listening to the introduction that I can't even remember where the first part of the introduction I actually heard. But in the course of the introduction, they were talking about he's worked with professional athletes and champions and la, right? So I'm thinking, well, it's going to be some, a Tony Robbins or something. This was before I knew whoever it was, So I said, well, he must be talking about Tony Robbins, Dr. Joe Dispenza, some of these other names that are, already, usual suspects in the best way. For those kind of things. And then he said, it's Professor Peters, Steve Peters. Who? Steve Peters, right? See, that lets you know that there's a whole nother world, right? Because his thing, he's in London. He's British, right? So he's working with their historic soccer dudes, and the bicyclists. These were Olympic class gold medal performers. That's his market, quote unquote. And when you get his bio, you can see how he followed his bliss to get there. He didn't just go straight there. It's like I just like to help people. That's the drive. And so he wound up going through so many things, which I see happening with you as well. There are a lot of things that you have to learn, some of which I think you mentioned tonight too. So, well, there are certain things that you had to learn that you didn't know before in the interest of realizing the goal that you had set for yourself. So in the course of you picking up all kind of skills and talents, et cetera, and doing that. So the point is that happened with him as well. And so the chimp paradox actually talks about the process that he uses to help people get through those potential blocks, right? And how to deal with those conversations that you were having. That conversation was in his model. Is his model. I'm not going to stay with it. I'm going to move on to my subject. But his model that he has the human, the chimp, and the computer. There's some work to be done with that if we try to relate it to our paradigm. But it's a very, 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 very useful model because each one has a paradigm, right? The human has a paradigm, the chimp has a paradigm, the computer has a paradigm, and you need to know what's the best way of them when they are working together, and also when they're working against each other. That's internal conflicts that need to be resolved. Okay, so much for that. So that was one thing I wanted to mention to you. Oh, and then the other thing that in what you mentioned, when you say your mentor was saying that you're not thinking big enough or something like that, right? What did you say? Your goals weren't big enough? What was your statement?
The dream wasn't big enough. If it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
If it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. Alhamdulillah. I'm gonna keep working on that too. And I'm gonna add to that a phrase that captures it so well. And I don't even know who said it. I'm just always out picking up stuff like at the secondhand store. Just pick it up. He said, this one, he said, we have to avoid the tyranny. Tyranny means like oppression, it's like wicked rulership, right? We have to avoid the tyranny of soft expectations.
Oh.
Yeah. The tyranny of soft expectations. Wanting to only operate just inside of your comfort zone. So it's like, and this was something I said many years ago, that your success lies just outside of your comfort zone. You keep staying inside the comfort zone. If you never go outside the comfort zone, well, that's where your success is. It's outside the comfort zone, right? So when you find the discomfort, say, well, we're almost there. When you feel like, oh, okay, I can hear the ocean. You know what I'm saying? We're almost there, right? Alhamdulillah. So alhamdulillah, may Allah continue to bless you, and I thank you for being a witness to the information and putting that information into application. Alhamdulillah, that's great. So let's go on and deal with the devil here. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
All right, y'all. So we're so the overall topic is the truth about the deal with the devil. This is effectively part 3, and we're saying it's the corporate edition. So let me begin by sharing the PowerPoint piece that we're working from. And when we let's go here. All right, it's kind of like, okay, this guy Lil Nas X, right? And the Satan shoe. And that Satan shoe where they made 666 pairs individually numbered, and it was $1,018 per pair, right? And that was based on Luke 10:18, which is stamped on the side of it. And it's a Bible verse that refers to Satan falling like lightning from heaven, right? So you have the upside down cross. You have one drop of human blood in every pair, and they sold out in like 90 seconds or something. What is it? Sold out in less than a minute. They sold all of them, all 666 pairs. Okay, and so the idea is that he has this this video, among many others, obviously, but one where he goes down a stripper pole type thing, and then he does a lap dance for Satan. He goes down and descends into hell, and then gives Satan a lap dance. Now, one of the main things that I'm aiming at is, listen, what you've been told about the devil and what you've been told about the deal with the devil, unless what I'm telling you is what you have been told, you've been lied to. You've been lied to about Satan. You've been lied to about the devil. You've been lied to about selling your soul to that. And see, it's just like right now, because of Imam Muhammad, rahimahullah, and the way that he conditioned us to think, right? See, the soul, where's the soul? Soul's on them tennis shoes, right? So his soul's on the tennis, so selling your soul to the devil, right? Says selling these shoes in service to Satan, if you will. That's how he sold his soul to Satan. But that Satan that he did the lap dance for on the video, that's not Satan. That's not Satan any more than this is Jesus. It's like, you look at that, that's not Jesus. I want you to understand. And you could have, and we've all seen a million different versions of whoever this Jesus is supposed to be, and neither one of them, I don't care where you find them, whether you find them in Rome or whether you find them in Greece or whether you find them in America or Europe, Africa, if you see a picture of a man and they say that's Jesus, that ain't Jesus, right? And I want you to understand, in the same way, all the images that you're given of Satan, that's not Satan. All right? That's not Satan, and that's not Jesus. So in terms of the deal with the devil and all the rest of that, get rid of all those images, the lap dance with Satan, what have you. All those images are given to the world to deceive the world about who Satan actually is. So you won't pay attention in the right way, in the right places, and you won't protect yourself in the right way from Satan's approach, and project. If you don't know how he's coming, and you don't know which way to look, and the Quran tells us and warns us about that. It says, Satan and his host watch you from a position where you see them not. Okay? So his goal is to be hidden. So whatever it is that is shown to you, oh, here he is right there. This is the real me. No, that's a distraction. But it has been built into this society in such a way where that icon, that imagery, is that Satan. So we want to just reinforce that and know that that's not the case. Now, yesterday, I'm not gonna play it this time, because I have some other pieces that I want to play. And I don't want to take up more time with that. But last week, so those of you, if you're in touch with us on YouTube, you're in touch with us on Facebook, then go back to last week. Go back to last week's WCP presentation, and you can get the clip that we played before that. But this is basically where we ended last week, and so we want to pick up from there today. And so what we listened to was Dr. Jordan Peterson talking about the subpersonalities that are our impulses, right? And sticking with the biblical aspect, and with that, listen, you look it up on your own, make a note of it. I just didn't have a chance to meld into this presentation that part, but go to that story in the Bible where it talks about I am legion. I am legion. It's inside of the story where Jesus found the man that was possessed of demons or something like that, right? And then he was asked, who are you? He says, I am legion. What legion means is many. When you talk about the foreign legion, right? And there are legions of people who are going here and going there. Legion means many, right? And so it's that I am legion. So it's that the demons that I am, the jinn for us, that the jinn are the multiplicity of jinn. When you understand them to be your urges, impulses, passions, desires that come with your physiology. They come with your physiology. You have urges, impulses, desires, passions. It's a part. If you have a body, you have all of those, right? And it's going to be different for different people. And there are also those that are universal for us as human beings as well. And this note here, which I'm going to read just a second, this note here is telling us that every one of them, every one of those urges, impulses, appetites, what Dr. Peterson explained is that you should treat each one or understand each one of those urges, impulses, desires, appetites, etc., as a separate or sub personality, meaning I am alive as just that. I can think about these Pixar type recent movies where I don't know, whatever, yeah, whatever, those little creatures where they represented the feelings inside of someone. I'm not looking at any chat boxes or anything like that, but you all perhaps know what I'm talking about. So the idea is that, you know, one represents happiness, one represents sadness, one represents whatever. But that's a portrayal of the reality of all urges, impulses, appetites, desires, passions. Each one is a standalone personality. Your anger is a standalone personality. Your jealousy is a standalone personality, right? There's an urge or there's an impulse that makes that gets personified or gets represented in your jealousy, right? Your arrogance, when you become arrogant, that the arrogance came from an impulse that was in its nature and potential to be arrogant, and it is driving to take over the whole machine, all to try to take over the big, such that the whole person presents themselves as arrogant, or the whole person presents themselves as angry or vengeful or greedy or lustful. Either way, the point is that what that means is that that person that you're looking at and that you're experiencing, they have been captured, and thereby they are dominated by an impulse that won the war over that person's will. So they were fighting with all the before they became that, they were fighting with all the other urges, impulses, appetites, etc., each of which is trying to be the main operator for the machinery. And so that one, the one that you see most, that is the one that is overtly the expression of that person, is whatever, a pharaoh, just to try to get to a specific. That's because that urge dominating. And here's the verse right in front of us. Say, have you not seen the one who takes his desires as his God? So just like with Pharaoh, that's 45:23. That's just like with Pharaoh, say, I know no other God than myself. So so who was the God that he was following, and who was the God that he was declaring? His own desires, his own arrogance, his own greed for power, his own desire for dominance, etc. They're all of our urges and all of our appetites. If they could be allowed, they would take over us totally. And that creature that is referenced there in the Bible, for as far as Jesus and the man that was possessed of demons, and said, we are legion. It's just a statement to say that, yeah, our urges, impulses, and appetites are legion. And if they don't come under the authority of God, then they become the God authority in the person. All right. So this statement here, anyone who considers the basic drives of man, that is all these urges, impulses, appetites, desires that we've been talking about, will find that all of them have done philosophy at some time. This is kind of a rhetorical way of saying that, look, each impulse is capable of rationalizing its own desire for dominance. So my anger has a rationale to justify itself. My greed has a rationale to justify. It's inside the potential itself, inside the passion, inside the impulse itself, right? And if I give sway to that, that is, if I submit myself to that drive, that impulse, then what I do is abdicate leadership in the direction that is away from or that should be controlling that impulse to get the benefit from its energy. But if I don't control it with the right desire, will, intention, then it takes over. It inverts the process. And so I just become an angry person, for example. I just become a jealous person. I just become an arrogant person, right? And all the other, every negative quality has the potential to become the whole person, right? And so this is what this is saying, that every one of them would like only too well to represent just itself as the ultimate purpose of existence and the legitimate master of all the other drives. That is Iblis by definition. That is Iblis by definition. Iblis is a jinn, and Iblis was in charge of the heavenly order. That was his job. He was in charge. He was functioning there, right? But then God said, "Inni ja'alu fil ardi khalifa." I'm making in the earth a khalifa. Iblis understood that it's like that's going to be a replacement. The angels also understood that that's going to be a replacement, because it's like, if it's not going to be like you, it's not going to be like me, i.e. the angels. Well, then what? You're going to create something that causes mischief and bloodshed. And there's a whole lot of tafsir that goes with, quote unquote, asking that question at all. And there's a lot of teaching that has to do with, okay, how, if they're angels and they're asking that question to God, it's like, how is it that they're questioning God and they are angels? So there's a whole nother teaching in that. That's not our point today. The point is to understand that this behavior on the part of urges, appetites, impulses, and desires is personified in Iblis itself. I'm supposed to be in charge. That's Iblis. I'm supposed to be in charge. You created him from mud and molded into shape. You created me from fire, right? I'm not going to submit to that because I'm supposed to be in charge. But that's the attitude of all urges, appetites, and impulses before they get domesticated, before they get disciplined, before they come under the rule of God, and or unless they come under the rule of God. And I think that certainly has to do with the idea that, going to the biblical representation of it, has to do with the idea that Jesus cast the demons out into a herd of swine, right? Swine, Imam Muhammad rahimahullah, as the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the hadith says that in the return of Christ, he was going to slay the swine, to break the cross and slay the swine. Breaking the cross has to do with the whole mystery of the cross, right? And the power of that mystery, because it's also been a part of a manipulation that has dominated us, right? They crucified him not, nor killed him. So the whole crucifix and that idea, with all respect to my believing brothers and sisters, near and far, the fact is that crucifixion in Al-Islam, it never happened, at least and especially in the way that's portrayed. And then God didn't just exit all the way out. God said, but it was made to appear as such. So it's debatable. So therefore, there's still a debate. So there's a truth in it that is not quite well understood. Well, mashallah, I believe Allah has blessed us with that understanding. In fact, I'm satisfied. God has blessed us with that understanding. And it's in the cross. Imam has explained. It's in the Quran, and Imam has explained it. I'm sorry, I can't go into it right now, but we will go into it at another time. For those of you who are looking and searching and wondering, the answer is inside of understanding, according to the Imam, inside of understanding 3:102, the Quran 3:102. When you understand that, and you understand what death represents there, and when you understand that dying is not just on the physical level, there's death on a number of levels, and how there's a certain death that has to take place before you can truly well, be free to be what Allah created you to be. And the fact is, the imagery of Jesus Christ dying on the cross has to do with the achievement of that state. So there's a positive understanding of what's been portrayed as in the crucifixion. However, that's this understanding is not the one that's been given to the masses. The one that's been given to the masses is the one that makes this guy the savior of the world, and everybody who can relate to him ethnically and racially, make them behave the way that they behave. So A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. But let's move on with the message for today. So, for every drive wants to be master, and it attempts to philosophize in that spirit. Okay, so even when Iblis refused to bow after Allah had breathed into Adam his spirit, and the angels bowed down, and every creature, everyone bowed down, not so Iblis, right? And then Iblis gives his rationalization. He rationalizes. God said, why don't you bow to the one that I created with my two hands? He said, I'm better than him. I'm better than him. You created him from clay, you created me from fire, blah, blah. So he rationalized. And that's the big part of what we're talking about today. And that's a big part of the deal with the devil. And it's not a corporate contract exclusively, or a record contract exclusively, or some other kind of, sign on the dotted line kind of thing. It's about the rationalization that makes you behave in a particularly unredeeming fashion. And that's what we're going on to right now. All right. So we have to talk about the jinn. We've been talking about the jinn. Let's go on to deal with what is the reality of the jinn. Because for us in Al-Islam, you have the jinn. Iblis was a jinn. Then Iblis became Shaitan. Right? So the origins of, quote unquote, the devil, the origin of Shaitan, English language, Satan. But again, even when we use that language, we don't want you to even think about the same idea of Satan that you've been given. You have to do your own research, but let me just throw something out to you, that the devil with the horns and the hoofs and all of that has everything to do with Pan, that creature. I think they're called satyrs. But Pan, either way, Pan, which was a god of some type, just like you have Mars and Jupiter and these Pluto and all these other whatever gods. Pan was one of them, and according to some writings, it's like they found a place for the other gods in some way or the other, but they couldn't find a place for Pan, because Pan was that creature of the woods, like the jinn, the very thing you talk about, the jinn, hidden creature of the forest and all those kinds of things. But Pan, he has the horns. He's the one that has the horns, and he's the one that has the hoofs. So the devil that the West has been given is a transmogrification or a transformation or an adaptation of Pan, right? So that's one of the reasons why you're dealing with the horns and the hoofs, because it's a remake of a pagan god in that sense. But let's move on. So Quran 15:27 and 55:15 speak to what we're talking about in terms of the reality of the jinn. 15:27, an expression is, and the jinn race we created before from a fire of a scorching wind. And also 55:15, and he created the jinn from fire free from smoke. Right? Okay. One of the things that I always emphasize when we talk about the jinn race we created before from a fire of a scorching wind, it has to do with, I told you that these passions, appetites, desires, impulses, urges. They come with it. They are part and parcel of our body, right? And by the time we reach puberty, the years leading up that the decade plus leading up to that, we've been living in these bodies, and those urges, impulses, appetites, passions, desires, etc., have been dwelling as a part of the very fabric of our flesh, right? Then the battle starts at puberty, when we have to control those urges, control those passions, control those appetites, control those desires, direct those urges, appetites, passions, and desires in the interest of society, in the interest of civilization, in the interest of the group that we belong to. You cannot allow your urges, appetites, impulses, desires to run wild, literally speaking, doing only what they want to do, because that is contrary to the stable structure and the stability of the tribe, of the society that you belong to. And so therefore, those urges, appetites, desires, and passions, they were already existing before you came into that age of responsibility, i.e. puberty, in Islam called mukallaf. All right, they were already there. And not just that, as Dr. Peterson talks about, and it's just true that they have very ancient systems. Even when the doctor I mentioned, the Dr. Peters that I referred to in the book, The Chimp Paradox. We're talking about systems, right? He has a system where it calls the Chimp Paradox. Then you have also those that talk about the reptilian brain, the limbic system, the ancient whatever this with the outer part here is what the cerebellum, right? And the cerebrum, the older brain, the ancient brain, the brain that helped us survive. To the very fact that you and I are existing right now, it represents the success of the generation before us, and their existence represents the success of the generation before them. Because of course, if the generation before me were not successful, I wouldn't be here, right? All right. So the success over the hundreds of millions of years that it took for us to become the human beings that we are, without being monkeys first, that those systems, which are very automatic, very habitual, fight, flight, or freeze, those capacities, they were at work, and they are survival capacities, and they don't require us to think about what they're to do. They're part of our, what do you call it, autonomic nervous system. I'm just trying to get past it. The idea is that you have these natural urges, impulses, appetites that have to do with the survival of this body, and they have worked well because that's how the body has survived. All right. You have to have an appetite. You have to have the capacity to protect yourself. You have to have the capacity to protect yourself by fighting, or protect yourself by fleeing, or protect yourself by freezing so that you can't be seen, right? So those capacities are the capacities that we inherit in our bodies. And in a manner of speaking, that is the jinn we created before. Okay. But now they have it, though, that they by nature are not used to asking for permission to be a certain way. Can I run now? No, we out of here, right? So can we fight now? No. Should we fight? No. It's like, meaning that I don't have time for that conversation. We got to go down right now. So it is with so many other things. Okay, so therefore it said, look, I'm the one that got you here. Basically, the jinn could say, if it was voiced, I'm the one that got you here. So you need to do what I say, when I say it, and the way I say it, right? No, in order to be civilized now, where we are, you have to do something different. We have to be different, in a manner of speaking. But the main point is to understand that the jinn race we created before also has to do with that. Now, this hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha gives us a clue and an example of how the devil, quote unquote, the shaitan, manifests in real time. All right. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reported that one day Allah's messenger came out of her apartment during the night and she felt jealous. When he came back and he saw her, and she says she's speaking in first person, so he said, came back and saw me in the agitated state of mind that I was, he said, Aisha, what happened to you? Do you feel jealous? Thereupon she said, how can it be that a woman like me should not feel jealous in regard to a husband like you? Thereupon Allah's messenger, peace be upon him, said, it was your jinn who made, and some translators would actually translate as devil. Said it was your jinn who made you, who came to you. And she said, Allah's messenger, is there along with me a jinn? He said, yes. I said, is a jinn attached to everyone? And that's a big key, attached to everyone. He said, yes. Aisha asked again, Allah's messenger, is it with you also? He said, yes, but my Lord has helped me against him, and as such, I am absolutely safe, from his mischief. All right, so he had help from his Lord from the mischief of his jinn. We need help from our Lord from the mischief of our jinn, because as we've already said, every jinn, every urge, impulse, appetite, etc., wants to be in charge, and it is powerful. It's been around longer than us as a willing mind. It's been around longer, so the power of our impulses, urges, and appetites is stronger than our minds until we make our minds stronger than those urges and those impulses. But in the meantime, if we fail to do that, then those impulses will become our God, our Lord and Master. Be careful. All right, Imam Muhammad Rahimahullah, he says, Scripture uses figurative expression, figurative speech, and abstract symbols to address what is actual and what is scientific, what is very real. All right, so the reality that the term jinn points to is something in the dynamic operations of the human makeup. That's what I've been talking about. What I've been talking about is the dynamic operations of the human makeup. We have our bodies, we have our urges, impulses, appetites, desires, we have our mind, we have our will, etc. We have that. That's a part of the machinery itself. There's a dynamic going on inside of that. And the main point is we have to become the masters of our own system. It's called self-control. It's called self-discipline, right? But we need help to do that. Let's finish the reading here. It says, the nature of the jinn is our impulses, appetites, desires, passions, drive. That's the fire free from smoke. And before, let me go ahead and say this. It keeps flashing through my mind. Let me hit it and move on. You know, they have these air fryers now. We have one. These air fryers, right? Just cooking with hot air, no flame involved, no microwave, hot air, and that thing cooks, right? So we won't call the machine a jinn, but it's an idea that of seeing fire free from smoke right now. Okay, so impulse, appetites, desires, passions, drives, before we, by our will and by Allah's grace, place them under Allah's authority. We have to put those impulses, appetites, desires, passions, drives, we have to put them under Allah's authority. It's called taqwa. It's called taqwa, right? Kutiba alaykum as-siyama kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'alakum tattaqun. Fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, in order that you might learn self-restraint. What is self-restraint? Impulse restraint, appetite restraint, desire restraint, passion restraint, drive restraint. That's taqwa, right? So before we get taqwa, then those urges, appetites, impulses are in charge. Until this state is achieved, the jinn, our jinn, is the potential in our. That is before you get there. Okay. We're born. If a child dies before they reach puberty, they automatically go to paradise. Automatically. Because they're not under any they're not under any rule other than the rule of nature, right? But if you reach puberty, when you reach puberty, you become mukallaf, meaning that the book is open, and now things start getting written down. Well, you did the right thing, and they did the wrong thing. You did the right thing, and they did the wrong thing. All right, so now your book is open and it's being written, right? And so the potential for, I'm going to say it this way, going left, right? Like, as we see here, envy, jealousy, lust, anger, greed, pride, revenge, all of that, though all those potentials are existing in us, just let's make ourselves a teenager in my illustration. Okay, a teenager. Okay, you're a teenager, you pass puberty, those urges of impulse, appetites, desires, they're there and they're alive, and now they are trying to have their way. Envy is trying to take over. Jealousy is trying to take over. Lust is trying to take over. Greed is trying to take over. Pride is trying to take over, right? And the person, teenager, if you will, is trying to, and should be, trying to manage all of that to be civilized and acceptable and, have good manners and good behavior. It's a battle. Right? Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But the potential to go left is there first. We have to learn how to go right by being civilized and by being socialized, right? By being taught etiquette, adab, okay? Well, that's the battle. That's the battle. So the point is that we arrive at that stage of our life with the potential to go left. And if you ever saw those crests, crests, the crest was like, from the House of Lords or whatever. So you had a crest, and you have the lion, and you have the sword, and you have the book, and whatever. So those shields, right? The crests, they're called crests. Well, when you have a band that goes across it, right? Like those Miss America and Miss Universe kind of things that they put across there. The one that leans left, leaning left is called sinister. That's the name for leaning left, right? Sinister, right? So we have a sinister inclination. All right. Sinister, that doesn't mean that we're evil by nature. I think Quran is up next on that. Well, it should have been. So we'll get to it. We have an inclination before we get to, or rather, when we get to puberty, our first inclination is to not do the right thing. In fact, the way that we get civilized, the way that we get socialized is we get corrected. That's how you do the wrong thing. You say, no, we don't do that here, right? Okay, what was the first thing you did? The first thing you did was something that you shouldn't do, right? Okay, but then socialization comes in and said, don't do that. And then when you line up with that expectation, that value, okay, to that extent, you're becoming civilized. And so then you have to learn a little more, and then you have to learn a little more. All these different things is etiquette. So this learning by correction, right? So why? Because we lean left first, right? Children don't share, not in the beginning, right? They have to learn how to share, and so many other things, patience, so many other things. just everything that makes us fully human requires the control of our proclivity that goes left, and that's from the very beginning of the challenge at puberty, right? And the Quran 50 verse 16 expression of it is that it is we who created man, and we know what dark suggestions his soul makes to him, for we are nearer to him than his jugular vein. And that has everything to do with the idea of our passions, because the passion is in the blood, the desires is in the blood, the biochemistry itself carries the issues of anger, lust, desire, appetite, etc. Those things are things that are very much tied to the blood. And the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it says Satan circulates in man like the circulation of blood, right? And so in the Arabic, it says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَتَعْلَمُ ما توسوس به. ما توسوس, sound familiar? ما توسوس به نفسه. We know the waswas, we know the whispers of evil. Most of us are familiar with that translation. That his nafsahu, that his nafs makes to him. Let's get to the other one. There's more to be learned from this. Well, and this is Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. It says, وَمَا أُبَارِئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَعَمَارَةُ بِسُوءٍ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي إِنَّ رَبِّي غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Joseph is saying, nor do I absolve my own self. وَمَا أُبَارِئُ نَفْسِي. We got to get clear on this nafsi and the nafsuhu that's mentioned in the other verse. And we'll get that as we go on. He said, nor do I absolve my own self of blame. Now here it is. The personality, before it is disciplined, is certainly prone to follow evil suggestions, unless my Lord do bestow his mercy. But surely, certainly, my Lord is all forgiving, most merciful. So here God is saying, look, I know your inclination because I created you. I know the dark suggestions your own soul makes you. I know that in the beginning you don't have the strength to be able to overcome these age-old, ancient passions, desires, appetites, etc. And we know that you're working to try to become more civilized and line up in the world that I'm seeking for the establishment of human nature as I intended it. And so I'm oft forgiving, most merciful. So don't beat yourself up. Ask for forgiveness and do better next time, right? So in the same way, it says, be su'in, same thing. To us, whistle, be su'in. It's all having to do with the same inclination, same proclivity. And so it is the personality, this nafs that's spoken of here, is not the soul in the sense of nafsun wahida. It's the personality that you are and I am as an individual. The personality is the mind. Well, actually, it's said this way, that the personality is the customization of the brain. So you have the brain, and that brain has its own brain patterns, right? Your brain has brain patterns, and my brain has brain patterns, and so consequently, there are certain things that respond in me in a certain way, and in you in a different way. Why? Because our brains are personalized. So your brain patterns give you a person, and that's your nefs. All right. One little note here. So in terms of that, so that's a part of it. So this speaks to that very thing. And here, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, the Prophet, he said, none of you truly believes until his desires are subservient to that which I have brought. So he in this now we can understand more that this hawa, that he spoken of here, that he speaks of here, he said, well, let's go ahead and read it. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يكون هواه. Hawaahu is speaking of your hawa, your passions, your desires, your appetites, your inclinations, etc. Hawaahu, his appetites, desires, etc. Taba'an liman jittu bi, till it follows what I have brought. So until our urges, appetites, desires, passions, etc., follow what the prophet has brought, we are not truly believers. So to become a believer is to come to the full management of your own appetites, desires, passions, etc. That's what it is. And so what Al-Islam gives us, and the 5 pillars of Al-Islam, simple, as when I say simple and explicitly as an example, that's what they are designed to do. They help us to manage everything that I've been talking about, right? Shahadatain helps us to know there's God, there's man. Man is not God. So that you worship God, that means you don't worship any man, and you also don't worship yourself, right? All of that. And then, of course, you have salat. Salat, really, and prayer protects from indecency and evil. Prayer is one of the most explicit rituals that enables us to control our appetites, desires, passions, etc. Because you have to bring your whole machinery, no matter what you're doing. You have an obligation. Not that you can always do it. I understand. I know where we live. The point is that you have, when the call is given, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, when the call is given, Allahu Akbar, the whole machinery said, oh, we need to be heading to the prayer area. Who? Every one of you. Who? Legion. All of you. We all go into prayer, right? And so now you have the salat. So now you have literally the discipline. Don't need to go through the whole thing. Then what follows after that? Charity, right? The zakat, the mandatory, the obligatory zakat. That appetite that wants to hold on to, man, you mean I gotta, yeah, you got to do that. You got to be in the habit of doing it. And you have to do it willingly and peacefully and happily and habitually. You have to establish it as one of your brain pattern ways of being, right? As with the salat, right? And not see them as separate. Salat, zakat, they go together. 2 wings, 1 bird. That's how you fly. So salat, zakat, and then you have the fasting, right? Real big for everything we're talking about. The fasting, that's la'alakum tattaqun, totally. That is, so everything that Al-Islam is giving us is designed to help us to arrive at that perfected state that God intends for us to arrive at, because there's so much more in us to be realized, actualized, and benefited from in this world. And also that it's the wherewithal for us to be purified for our admittance in the best location in the life that comes hereafter. And then, of course, there's Hajj. And Hajj is the whole thing. Hajj is the whole package. I mean, that Hajj, that representation, that rich jewel, as Hajj gave us last week, it's a ritual, but it's a rich jewel. That rich jewel of Hajj is the crowning diadem, to stay with that analogy. It's the crowning diadem of life on earth, Hajj. Right? People love to say it's the Mecca of this and it's the Mecca of that. Why? Because Mecca represents the height of gathering and pilgrimage and union and unity and joining together. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All right. So when we do all of those things, let me check my time. When we do all of those things, that's the layout. That if we follow that, then the deal with the devil is nullified. It's like it is not possible for one who is on that track to make a deal with the devil. But let's move on and speak to that. So let's okay. So I'm gonna I definitely have to. I'm gonna call it play with my new toy. I want to share a video with you right now, and this is Ayn Rand because this is the corporation version of the deal with the devil. So I have to share with you a living example of someone who has made a deal with the devil and those who are following them in that deal. This person has passed away, Ayn Rand, but just listen to this this clip here, and we'll. Okay. All right. Okay. Sure. Video file. It's about 5
The
minutes.
Young Turks is brought to you by Netflix. Ayn Rand is the hero of so many different conservatives throughout the country. The Paul Ryans and Clarence Thomas and Alan Greenspan. They've all praised her to no end. Senator Rand Paul, you're going to see him in the video in a second. And they love her because she is the person who has come up with the theory of, like, only care about yourself. Who gives a damn about anybody else? You know, Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead, etc. Now, you know, I think it's an interesting theory. I think it's worthwhile to discuss. I don't dismiss it out of hand at all, right? But it's a little unbalanced, to say the least. I'm a person who believes, hey, you know what? The individual matters a lot, and we have to protect the individual. At the same time, community matters, and we're probably better off with some sort of balance. And Ayn Rand doesn't believe that. She thinks, no, I don't care about anybody else, as she's about to tell you, right? So people called American Values Network have decided that they're going to do an ad to educate people about her because so many of the Republicans base their whole philosophy on her, and there's a lot you might not know about her.
I am against God. I don't approve of religion. It is a sign of a psychological weakness. I regard it as evil.
Who is Ayn Rand? And more importantly, why has she had such a profound impact on Republican leaders? Like Senator Ron Johnson, who called Rand's novel Atlas Shrugged his foundation book, and Senator Rand Paul, who said he is a fan.
You are out to destroy almost every edifice in the contemporary American way of life, our Judeo-Christian religion. You scorn churches and the concept of God. Are these accurate criticisms?
Yes, I am the creator of a new code of morality and morality, not based on faith.
Rush Limbaugh called her brilliant, and Fox and Friends declared her movie a victory for capitalism. And as for the author of the Republican budget, Paul Ryan,
Ayn Rand, more than anyone else, did a fantastic job of explaining the morality of capitalism, the morality of individualism. And this, to me, is what matters most.
What matters most to you?
Republicans devoutly, almost praying to such a devout atheist is fascinating, right? I wonder how that would please or not please their voters if they found out, right? But to me, I'm an agnostic, so I don't mind that. I find that interesting, right? But what is much more relevant is when Paul Ryan, talked about how she really displays the real morality of capitalism. And I think that part is true in their mind. For the Republican view of capitalism is that there actually is no morality. You get whatever you can get and screw everyone else. That you have no obligations to your community, you have no obligations to your fellow man, and that is why Ayn Rand didn't like the Judeo-Christian heritage. Because agree or disagree, part of that, a very strong part of that heritage is you help the poor, you help the needy, you help others, right? And she didn't like that at all. She only wanted to help herself. Now, if you think she's already a little out there, wait till you find out who one of her heroes was. And Mark Ames wrote a very interesting piece about this on Alternet. Apparently in her diaries, she talked about how much she admired William Edward Hickman. And she, in fact, might have based her hero, John Galt, in Atlas Shrugged on him. So who is William Edward Hickman? Well, back in 1927, he was a guy that was discovered to be a serial killer who killed a 12-year-old girl and dismembered her. Now, when you get into the details of that crime, it is unbelievably horrific. I mean, he dismembered her. So you begin to get a sense of it. The details are even worse. This is what she wrote about him in her diaries. Other people do not exist for him, and he does not see why they should. He has no regard whatsoever for all that society holds sacred, and with a consciousness all his own, he has the true innate psychology of a Superman. He can never realize and feel other people. To her, that was the ultimate goal. That's what they call a Superman. You know, whether Nietzsche's writing about it, although he was much more nuanced about it than she was. Nietzsche is a brilliant writer in a lot of ways, agree or disagree. I think Ayn Rand, when you read her, is incredibly simple. She just goes to the one extreme, and look at what she says. This serial killer who dismembered a 12-year-old girl, he's a Superman because no one else matters to him. And this is the person that these Republicans pray at the altar of. Get a load of Netflix. They deliver the movie to your house, no late charges.
Yeah, so that's the piece on Iron. So let me go back, and we're going to close out the slide portion to just fill in maybe a blank for you on her as it relates to the deal with the devil, right? So looking at her specifically as just one example, we played in the beginning the idea of Monsanto, right? So we know that they had inside the Monsanto piece the idea of Roundup, and you all know by now that Roundup has been affirmed as one of the carcinogens in the society, and et cetera, affected many. And the idea about being a bovine growth hormone in milk, et cetera. So that was that piece. But these were people, corporations making decisions about profit, in the interest of profit, against the interests of the person, of the individual. Let us read this. This is what she said on Johnny Carson, 1967. You can find it on YouTube as well. It says the basic principle of objectivism, that's her rationale, is called objectivism. The basic principle of objectivism is that man must be guided exclusively by reason. There's your fire free from smoke. Reason is something that gets on something and breaks it down. It critiques it. It breaks it down. It's logical. That aspect of it. Exclusively by reason. He said that's what he should be guided by. Reason is the faculty that identifies and integrates the material provided by his senses. Reason is man's only tool of knowledge, his only guide to action, his only guide to the choice of values. And that is to say, in contradistinction to, it's not religion, it's not God, it's not faith, it's not revelation. It is his own reasoning, his own mind, intellect. As a consequence of that, man's proper ethics, this is her speaking, man's proper ethics or morality is a morality of rational self-interest, which means that every man has the right to exist for his own sake, right? There's only me, right? And he must not sacrifice himself to others or sacrifice others to himself, that the achievement of his own rational happiness is the highest moral purpose of his life. So Ayn Rand's objectivism is a model of the rational lies. Those lies are very rational. And you see leaders on Capitol Hill and in so many, Clarence Thomas as one who's declared that the foundation of much of his thinking is from Ayn Rand. And we see what's going on with him in the headlines even today and during the time of his appointment. As a model of rational lies. They are lies that sound good. Rational lies which support a deal with the devil, because you can make a deal with the devil that says, I don't have to pay attention to the needs of another, the weaknesses of another, the call for aid from another. I have no responsibility to that individual, every man for himself, right? it gives its subscribers, that is, who buy into those rationalizations, it gives its subscribers a line of reasoning to justify their socially unredeeming urges and impulses and their inclination to follow their appetites and passions and not natural morality and conscience. That is, you're not to have any natural human conscience. You are only to follow your own rational interests. What your mind tells you is good for you. And so if those urges, appetites, impulses, desires have taken over your intellectual apparatus and have provided for you a rationalization for your behavior, even if people get cancer and die in wars and etc., doesn't matter. It's not your responsibility. And she's the one that provides that rationalization. So her and those who subscribe to her, corporations, political leaders, etc., they are the ones who made a deal with the devil. It's not something with horns and red and goatee and down living under the earth. No, it's the rationalization of their own urges, appetites, impulses, and desires that are not having a sense of obligation to civilization and society and human need, etc. That's the deal with the devil, and it applies on the other. So next week we may go one more round and give some specific examples. Well, I guess the music industry is just easier to start there, and we'll cover that, and that would be the closeout actually of this particular theme and thesis, and inshallah we'll go to that. As I call Haja back into the room, any comments from you, my dear?
No, I mean, we just for us to keep building.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, it's going.
To not depend on those that are not moving in integrity. We have to get back into the mode of doing for ourselves.
Yeah, we have to. We have to. So make it happen. All right, everybody. That's gonna be it for today. Let me go ahead. I think we acknowledged others as we went through. Let me tick it off. Alhamdulillah, Brother Jerome, assalamu alaikum. Khaliqa, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brother Steve, assalamu alaikum. Latifa, assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Abdul Wahid, assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. And again, halal slaughter, mashallah. What we got? We had these earlier comments from Imam Adib and also again from Jerome. Masha, assalamu alaikum. Abdul Haq, Brother Anthony, assalamu alaikum. Islam in the United States, alhamdulillah. And Nayira, Madiyun, alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum. And also, we have here, this is Muzan Trek. Okay, what about the world of the jinn, communication with them through psychedelics? We'll get to the psychedelics, please. It's an important thing to get to. I don't think I've touched on it much here. Do people communicate with their own jinn, or are they separate? Yeah, I mean, you communicate with your own jinn. Sometimes you just don't know that that's what's speaking when it's speaking, and you can hear it in the appetites, desires, past. All you gotta do is look at a comment or a conversation that comes to you that is inviting you away from the right way of being. And then when you listen and follow that urge, that appetite, that impulse, that suggestion, well, then your conversation was with the jinn. It was the jinn that took you over there, right? All the other psychedelics and those. This is very absolutely brief comment on it. It's like, yeah, as we talked about legion and we talked about personality. We even talked about assalamu alaikum. When we speak to each other, we speak to each other in the plural. There are multiple personalities, what we just said, sub-personalities inside that are total in and of themselves. And yes, you can encounter the totality of that, I would say, if you're in, quote unquote, in that state. But the whole idea of that's in fact the psychedelics and the way that they're using drugs nowadays, even though there is a medicinal application that has demonstrated its value, but then when people start dealing with these kinds of things, because what Allah has created, Allah created it, right? We're not talking about nothing synthetic. We're talking about the actual stuff that Allah created from the earth without the influence of man, that and having that particular effect on man, Allah has already said, for every disease, He's revealed a cure. The Prophet, peace be upon him, tells us this. So therefore, yeah, there are some things that are from the earth that can be used to cure maladies and are being used to cure maladies and sufferings that people have. But that's not the general use that people come to them with and for. People go, we're gonna go and have a recreational trip with mushrooms and a recreational trip with ayahuasca and whatever. It's like, okay, hope you make it back. So it's a whole nother story. So moving on. Good question. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. Inshallah, inshallah. And what's the other thing? Can we access your presentations somewhere? Well, basically, you can go to
on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, and we also have the Facebook. And as far as the Jumu'ah are concerned,
Your Vimeo.
Yeah, Vimeo, masterwordtheme.org, and Vimeo, Vimeo. Just type in my name, see what comes up. Let me know. All right, everybody. It's been real. Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Yes.
God's peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How we put an end to this?